Hello students, in the previous session we have discussed about Indian Partnership Act, general introduction, then we have noted down the important features of partnership uh, partnership agreement. Then we have come across the differences between partnership kind of business and other kinds of business. Other A business created out of partnership and other businesses created out of different kind of aspects like HUF or joint stock company and so on. Now we'll talk about a couple more, that is the difference between partnership and co-ownership and partnership and association. We'll talk about those differences and then we'll talk about various kinds of partnerships. So the first difference, continuing from what we left in the previous class, what are the differences between partnership and co-ownership? First, to note down the differences, first we have to understand as to what co-ownership means. Co-ownership means a property being held by two people, two or more people, right? It usually happens in ancestral property cases, like wherein one house, it's a single house, but the owners are more than one. Such thing is called as co-ownership. And now that you have got the meaning, let us see the differences. Usually, the formation partnership, it arises out of a contract. Contract why? Because they execute a partnership deed. In case of co-ownership, it usually arises either by operation of law such as inheritance. Like I have explained, like usually what, like in case if it is an ancestral property, like let's say the property belongs to the grandparents, then who will be the owners? The the children of grandparents, that is the parents as well as the uncles or aunts. In such case, how did they become owners of the property? Only by way of inheritance. Okay, there is no specific agreement. As per law of inheritance, they have come into existence. Then implied. See, usually agency in case of partnership, like I have explained it to you in the previous class, each and every partner is an agent of other partners. Each and every partner is an agent of other partners. Whereas in co-ownership, usually the co-owner is not an agent of other co-owners. He is different, he is different. One co-owner is responsible for the acts done by him. He is not responsible for the acts performed by other co-owners irrespective of the property. Like as I have explained it to you in the previous session, let's say A, B and C are the partners. C had bought some goods from a fraudulent, or let's say C had bought damaged goods. Right now, even though C had bought the damaged goods, both A and B are responsible for those goods. They also have to bear a loss. But in case of co-ownership, the co-owner is responsible for his own actions. Like in case in the part of his property, if he has constructed something or had made certain changes, he is responsible for it. The other co-owners are not responsible for the acts done by a, a co-owner. Okay. Usually, in case, what is the kind of interest which includes in partnership firm? As the name itself suggests, the kind of interest in partnership firm is they share both profits and losses. Yeah, in case if they have to pay any interest on capital, they have to pay and so on. There is a cession of interest. There is a particular premise of interest, that means either profits or losses they have to be shared. But whereas in case of co-ownership, such kind of sharing of profits and losses or interest does not exist. In case of partnership firm, definitely a share in partnership can be transferred, and this share transfer can be done only from after consent of all the partners. But in case of a co-ownership, he can transfer his rights, like he can sell the part of his property to others, but he need not have any consent of other co-owners. Co-owners means in an autonomous manner, he is an legitimate authority of that particular part of the house. In case of a partnership firm, all the partners are jointly, money together, severally, money individually, responsible for all the acts carried out by the other partners as well. So, when a share or a partner is transferring his share from a partnership firm to another person, definitely he has to seek the consent of other partners. Such aspect is not available in co-ownership. In case if the co-owner wants to transfer his property, he can very well do so by executing a gift deed or sale deed. Now we'll talk about the differences between partnership versus association. Association means what? Few individuals coming together mostly for purposes of promoting a social cause. So how is it different from partnership? The main motive of an association is only to promote a social cause. It is not to earn profits. In case of the motive, here you have to verify the motive. In case of the motive is to earn profits, then it will become a partnership firm. Just like partnership firm, even in an association, a group of people come together. But motive is different. It is not to earn and share profits. It is not a business for gains. If they get additional income, fine. But the main objective is not profits. In case of a partnership firm, usually the relationship among two or more partners is to establish a business for purpose of earning profits. Okay. So this is something which you have to highlight. So I'm highlighting it over here. Kindly just underline it in your books of accounts. Here there is no necessary motive to earn and share profits. So like the other one, he has given an example. Partnership firm is partnership to run a business and earn profit. In case of an association, usually members of charitable society or a religious association or a building corporation and so on. So, what are the different kinds of partnership firms? What are the different kinds of partnership firm? So, different kinds of partnership firm can be broadly classified into two types, that is partnership firm with regard to duration and partnership firm with regard to extent of business. With regard to duration, again it can be further divided into two types, partnership at will and partnership for a fixed period. And in case of extent of business, particular partnership or general partnership. What do you mean by duration? Duration means time period. Here, duration means time period. See, some people might come together, try to do a business, earn profits, and they want to close the partnership. They don't want to continue it for life. For that, they keep one particular deadline or a timeline that is called as with regard to duration. So, that timeline or deadline, how do they keep it? Usually, sometimes partners keep it at will, or sometimes a fixed period. Say we'll be partners only for 3 months, so for running so and so business, and once we have earned profits, we are done with it. So, with regard to duration, it can be broadly classified into two types. That is what? Partnership at will and partnership for a fixed period. With regard to extent of business, it is usually divided into two types, that is particular partnership and general partnership. Particular partnership means what? Specifically, specifically for one particular type of business only, this partnership firm will be doing. In case of general partnership, it will be the partnership firm will continue for all kinds of businesses. Got it? So now we'll discuss about these different kinds of partnership in detail. First one is with regard to duration. Where are these details given in? This is given under like sections. I can safely say that section 7 of Partnership Act usually discusses about a specific duration. Duration means it has not expressly explained about the duration. Okay, but usually in case if partnership at will, according to Section 7 of the Act, is a partnership when no fixed duration had been fixed up for a partnership firm, or there is no provision made as to the determination of partnership firm. What does sections tell you? Section 7 comes into being when, as per partnership agreement or partnership deed, no fixed period had been agreed upon, no fixed period had been written on the agreement. That's what we have learned in the previous topic related to partnership firm. What is it? There should be a detailed agreement in writing. It's contractual in nature. So, what does Section 7 says? See, usually partnership at will is a kind of partnership when no fixed period has been agreed upon for the duration of the partnership, and in case if there is no provision made as to the determination of partnership. What do you mean by no provision? Provision here in the sense, it means no specific kind of I can call it as identification is available for determination of a partnership. Like for example, some partners, here determination of a partnership means a specific identification available for a partnership. Like partnership business only to run a specific kind of activity, say selling of cotton bales or selling of like let's say selling of chocolates or anything, or carrying out a profession of chartered accountants, let's say PricewaterhouseCoopers and Co chartered accountants. So this is a kind of determination of partnership. In case no such no such convenience, or I can say no such conditions are present in a particular partnership agreement, then it is called as partnership will, as per what? Section 7. So just please note down these two particular conditions. When is a particular partnership firm called as partnership at will? When is a particular partnership firm called as partnership will? Even though in case if they have not specifically mentioned about the duration or a specific mention as to determination, like how partners are to be enrolled, or what are who are the partners, what is the kind of business they are giving, or in case of no such convenience or conditions have been given, then it is called as partnership at will. Here along with the business, even the entry and exit of partners, or what are the provisions with regard to retirement of partners or resignation of partners, all these details are not determined at all. That's why it is called as partnership at will. So in this case of partnership firm, what happens is, where a partnership, in case of the, as I've told you, in case of this partnership firm, it is called as partnership at will. In case if there is any specific agreement, okay, please highlight this. In case if there is any particular agreement between the partners for duration of the partnership or for determination of partnership, then it is called as clearly defined partnership. In case if again a partnership is entered into a fixed term after an expiry of one particular term, it is called as having become a partnership at a will. This is one particular point where you have to put your efforts. What do you mean by that? In case if a partnership has been entered into fixed term, that is what with regard to duration has been defined, and a particular duration had been completed. In case for duration had been completed, then after completion of that fixed term, again they have incorporated another partnership firm. Okay, even in that case, it is to be treated as having become a partnership at will. Mind you, in the first definition, it says in case no fixed period had been agreed for duration and a partnership is not determined, then it is called as partnership at will. Fine, one condition. The second condition tells you, what it tells you is, in case partnership has been entered into a fixed term. Okay, it has been entered into a fixed term, it has expired. Now again they have entered into a partner again an agreement. Again, they have entered into an agreement for another period. So in that situations also it is called as partnership at will. Please go through this carefully because it can come as multiple choice questions. It can be a bit confusing. Here, first agreement, they had a particular fixed period. So it is called as partnership for a fixed term. But in the second agreement, immediately after the expiry of the first agreement, they have again entered into a fresh agreement to continue the same partnership. In such case, it is called as partnership at will. And usually, how will it be dissolved? How will this particular partnership firm can close down? Once any partner gives a notice in writing to all other partners of his intention to dissolve. Here, there is why do they say it as dissolving? Even though a one partner had only one partner, let's say, I'll explain it to you with an example. Let's say there's one partner. It's a partnership at will. A, B, C, D are the partners. A now writes a letter in writing saying that I want to dissolve it. Even though B, C, and D want to continue, the partnership still can be dissolved. Why? Because it is a partnership which had been made at will. Why? Because there is no specific provision which had been mentioned in the partnership deed stating as to what are the options available for other partners, and in case if one partner does not want to continue, whether any other partners wish to continue, and so on. So a partnership at will may be dissolved by any partner by giving notice in writing to all other partners of his intention to dissolve the same. In case of a partnership, in case of a partnership at will, three major points is, first of all, the partners have not agreed upon a fixed duration. The second point is, usually they do not have they have not made a provision with regard to determination of partnership. What is meant by determination of business partnership? The nature of business is not clearly defined. They can take up any business. The resignation or retirement or retirement of partners, in case of such scenarios, what are the aspects to be considered, how it is to be dealt, is not given in the agreement. In case if one particular partner wishes to dissolve, how do they wish to continue the partnership? Nothing is given in the agreement. Then it is called as partnership at will. So in this circumstance, even if one single partner wishes to dissolve and dissolve the partnership firm, if he gives anything in writing to other partners, automatically the partnership firm will be dissolved. Then what is the other thing which I have said it is important in multiple choice questions? That is, in case of a partnership firm has entered into a fixed term, okay, has entered into a fixed term, and now that is called as what? Partnership with regard to duration for a fixed period. Partnership for a fixed period. Now that fixed period has expired. Now again they have entered into a partnership, further partnership. Then it is called as partnership at will. Please note down the second point because of its kind of ambiguous nature. Once a partnership had been incorporated as partnership for specific period, then it has completed its tenure. Then again they have entered into a fresh agreement. The fresh partnership entered into it is called as partnership at will. The next part is partnership for a fixed period. It's quite simple. In case if there is a provision made by a contract for duration of partnership, the partnership is called as partnership for a fixed period. In case if there is a specific provision, in case if there is a specific provision in the contract saying that the partnership will extend up till 5 months or 6 months, then it is called as partnership for a fixed period or partnership for a fixed duration. These two categories belong to kinds of partnership wherein they have been particularly divided as partnership with regard to specific duration. With regard to duration, again it has been divided into two types, that is partnership at will and partnership for a fixed period. Then let us talk about with regard to business. Okay, what business a partnership firm has to take up. In this case, it is again further divided into two types, which is called as particular partnership and general partnership. In case of a particular partnership, here before going up to this particular point, I want you to underline prosecution and know the meaning. Prosecution, as in here, prosecution doesn't mean criminal proceedings against the guilty. Here, prosecution means something wherein they want to, please write down the meaning on top of the word, continuation of course of action. Please write down on top of it, continuation of course of action with a view to complete it. Yeah. So, continuation of a business with a view to earn profits. You can take the meaning of that term in that particular manner. In case if a partnership has been organized for prosecution of a single adventure, adventure here means a particular business, a business taken up by the partners. In case if a partnership has been organized for taking up a business, yeah, and conducted continuously, and in such case it is called as particular partnership. And this particular partnership, what is the main point over here? They have very clearly mentioned with regard to a particular business to be undertaken and execution of that particular business undertaken. Here adventure means, please mark it down, adventure means a business. So in case if a person becomes a partner with another person in any particular adventure or undertaking, this particular partnership is called as particular partnership. So, what is a particular partnership? Usually, a partnership that is organized for prosecution. Money here, you please understand, prosecution means for executing a single kind of business is called as particular business. Like A, B, C, D, E have entered into a business of being chartered accountants. Now, say C and D are also advocates. Now, in case if the partnership deed states that A, B, C, D, and co should continue as chartered accountants, then they have to continue as chartered accountants. They cannot take up legal assignments or law assignments related to law. Why? Because this is a particular partnership which deals only one and only with agreements pertaining to CA or CA endeavors. Okay, chartered accountancy endeavors. Endeavors means CA work, that is audits or whatsoever. So, a partnership, in simple terms, a partnership constituted for single adventure or undertaking is subject to an E agreement dissolved by completion of that particular adventure or undertaking. So, let us take an example. See, two people during the time of New Year, they have decided to sell huge crackers. Okay, during the year of New Year that December month, they want to sell crackers. So now what happens? They have decided to come into partnership only for purpose of selling crackers. In this case, this particular partnership is called as partnership for single adventure. They will not venture into other kinds of partnerships like selling of cakes or pastries or so on. They are only based into one aspect, and that is with regard to partnership for selling crackers. That is called as particular partnership. General partnership is completely opposite of particular partnership. In case of general partnership, it is usually any kind of business in general. They can take up any kind of business in general. Continuing the previous example itself, it can be crackers, it can be anything ranging from let's say cakes, pastries, or sometimes houses, real estate, whatsoever. They are very clear. They want to be a partnership firm. They can take up any other business. Okay. In case of so what is the difference? In case of particular partnership business, Usually their liability, everybody knows in the previous session I have explained what is an unlimited liability. In case of a particular partnership firm, usually the liability only extends to the extent of that particular business undertaking or adventure. But in case of a general partnership firm, the same unlimited liability, that is, in case of losses, the partners have to pay from their own personal pockets. That is what is the major difference between general partnership and particular partnership. In general partnership, it depends upon various kinds of businesses, but in case of particular partnership, only it is limited to that particular business aspect. Now comes to the most important point, that is called as partnership deed. Partnership deed is what? An agreement between the partners to run a particular business. Like Companies Act, no specific registration is required, but definitely an agreement should be present. And this agreement can be either in written or it can be vocal or oral. So you can underline this particular point. But usually, to avoid future disputes, we take a written document. And this particular document contains all the rights, regulations, and management aspects of a partnership business. And this particular agreement is called as partnership deed. But in case if it is a written agreement, then it has to be drafted properly and it should be stamped in accordance with Stamp Act 1899. So, any agreement with regard to running of partnership business which contains its rules and bylaws is called as what? Partnership deed. This particular partnership deed should be properly drafted with care and should be stamped according to the provisions of Stamp Act. That is, in case if it is written in, it is given in writing. But mind you, even verbally also it is recognized. But still, to be on a safer side, it is always written. In case of partnership firm also consists of immovable partner property, then this particular instrument of partnership must be in writing, stamped and registered under Registration Act. In case as a partnership business, if they are also having certain property like let's say office building or furniture and so on, even that should be in writing. So, what are the aspects what are the main aspects? Please note it down. It can be asked as a short answer question also. It's easy to remember what are the main things which are to be contained in a partnership deed. Just like any ordinary agreement, it consists of what is the name of the partnership. It's not form. Please note down in case if it is written even in your books as form, it's firm. Name of the partnership firm, names of all partners, nature and place of the business of the firm, date of commencement of partnership, duration of the partnership firm, capital contribution of each partner. And we are not limited to this. This list is not just limited, it's exhaustive. This list is not just inclusive, it is exhaustive. You can add more contents to it as well. But these are the main contents: what profit sharing ratio, admission and retirement of a partner, rates of interest on capital drawings or loans made by a partner. In case of dissolution of the firm, that is, in case if a firm is wound up, what are the provisions with regard to settlement? How should salaries and commissions payable to partners along with interest and along with the share of profits, in case if they have to pay any salaries or commissions, how they should be paid? In case if any particular partner is to be removed from a partnership firm, then what is the procedure? So all these provisions are usually given in a partnership firm. So, what are the different types of partners? Now that we have known about different kinds of partnership firms, that is, they have divided into four types: in a short, precise format: partnership based on duration and partnership based on will. Partnership based on duration, partnership at will. Partnership at will means it doesn't consist of any particular, the partnership deed does not consist of any particular provision, or it does not consist of any particular duration or any details. There is no particular determination as such. In that case, it is called as partnership at will. And in case if the partnership had been incorporated for a specific period, then it is called as partnership for specific duration. Then comes for a fixed period. Then comes business. In case if the partnership firm is being determined based on the extent of business, then it is divided into two types. Again, it is called as particular. Particular means the nature of business is like the partners delve into only one particular kind of business. That is called as what? Particular partnership. In case if no such specific nature of business had been mentioned, then it is called as general partnership. So this is with regard to partnership firms. Then what are the different kinds of partners? Here he has given many kinds of partners, that is active or ostensible. Ostensible here means, please note down the meaning of ostensible. In case if he appears to be true, but he need not be, like he, sometimes you see some people, they'll be making huge hue and cry over nothing, saying that I have done this, I have done that, but in reality that person seriously hasn't done much. Ostensible means somebody who is acting as though he is very active, but seriously he is not. Okay, that's what is the regular English meaning. Here, a person who is not actively involved but tries to look after the affairs of the business. So, this particular person is called as active or ostensible partner. Then the next one is nominal partner, sub partner. We'll be discussing that as and when I'll be taking up the particular topic. Nominal partner, sub partner, outgoing partner, sleeping or dormant partner, only partner in partner profits, incoming partner, partner by holding out. So first we'll start with active or ostensible. What do you mean by active or actual or ostensible? Active partner is a partner. He becomes a partner by agreement, and he usually participates in the conduct of business. That kind of person is called as active partner. As simple as that, you please go through this particular flowchart. If a person who has become a partner by agreement and he actively participates in the conduct of the partnership firm, then he is called as an active partner. Then comes a sleeping or dormant partner. Dormant means here he is not participating in the business activities. But how did he become the partner? He has become the partner by an agreement. If you please go through this particular mind map, or what I can call it as flow chart, that will be enough. In case of an active partner, there also the person becomes a partner by an agreement, but he participates in business. But in case of a sleeping or a dormant partner, he also becomes a partner by agreement, but he does not usually take part in the conduct of business. That's why he is called as sleeping or dormant partners. The next partner is a nominal partner. Just see nominal. The name itself sounds quite interesting. What do you mean by nominal? Let's say he has got a very good name. They are using his name for purpose of running this particular partnership firm. Then that person is called as nominal partner. He usually does not have any interest in the partnership firm. He does not take part in conduct of business. So obviously he is not entitled to any profits. Why then? Why does he become a partner, madam? Why should he become a partner? Thing is, as per special arrangements, he lends his name so as to, oh, like so as the, or I can put it in this way: the other partners usually employ him so as to lend his good name for improving the business. Like we have brand ambassadors for all these consumer durables. Do you think they usually use it, like let's say Lux soaps? You have so many actresses endorsing it. Let's say Lux soap is a is manufactured by a partnership firm. Let's say we have taken up Kareena Kapoor for it. Now, Kareena Kapoor is a nominal partner. She has just lent her name. Why? So that this particular brand becomes famous. Okay. So here she'll not be regularly participating in conduct of business. She literally does not have interest in the firm. Obviously, she'll be given certain amount of honorarium or kind of profit, kind of income, but she'll not be entitled to share any profit. Why? Because she does not take part in conduct of business. But she'll be liable to third parties for all acts of the firm. Yeah, this person is quite vulnerable to frauds. Why? Because there is always a problem from the third parties. Yeah, there is always a problem from the third parties for all acts of the firm. In case of any kind of third party negotiations, in case if there are various kinds of frauds done by other partners, then even though without their mistake the nominal partner has to make good their particular loss. This is with regard to nominal partner. The next one is partner in profits. Here usually this particular partner comes into being. Here also, in case of nominal partner, you can just go through this particular slide or this particular point. That will be enough. Always remember, he gives his name to the firm. Yeah, there will be a partnership agreement, but he will not have any real interest, or he is not entitled to share profits of the firm. And at the same time, he does not participate in the conduct of the business, but he is liable to third parties of the firm. The next partner is partner in profits only. In case of a partner who is entitled to share profits without being liable for the losses, is also known as partner for profits only. He is only known for profits only. And this partner usually is he liable to third parties like nominal partner. As I have explained in the previous session, A, B, C, and D are there. B has committed a fraud. In that case, A, B, C also automatically become the parties of the fraud, and they also have to make good the loss. But in case of a nominal partner, even though D is a nominal partner, let's say B has indulged in a fraudulent transactions, he'll still be persecuted or he'll still be liable. Who? A, B, and D. In case of partner and profits, this person is quite clever. Here, usually, what happens, this person is not liable for losses and he'll be entitled only to share profits. And in this situation, he'll be liable to third parties for all acts of the profits only. Usually, in this situation, what happens? This person is liable to third parties only for all the acts of profits only. In such situation, definitely a partner cannot share losses. He'll be sharing only profits. Okay, if he's sharing profits, what is happening? Now, let's say in that particular firm, one of the partners, say A, B, and C, A is one of the partners, he has entered into a transaction, and this A had committed his obligation in a fraudulent manner which had earned him profit. Okay, A had entered into a particular transactions which had earned in profits but in a fraudulent manner. In such case, C also will become liable. Even though he is a partner for profits, because that particular transaction had earned him profits, he will become liable to third parties. Hope I'm clear for with this. Then comes incoming partners. Incoming partners means additional partner. A, B, C, and D are the partners of the firm. Now E has come. So along with the existing partners, E is now called as an incoming partner. And E comes into being after consent of all the other existing partners.
Usually, and this particular person is not liable for any act conducted by the firm before he is admitted as a partner. In these circumstances, usually this particular partner is not liable for any act of the firm which is done before his admission as a partner. In case of an outgoing partner, here this partner usually leaves the firm. It can be either because of retirement or any other case. In such case, this person is called as an outgoing partner, and similarly, he will be liable for all the acts of the firm unless and until a public notice has been given stating about his retirement. This partner usually is liable to third parties for all acts of the firm until public notice is given of his retirement. Then comes partner by holding out. What do you mean by partner by holding out? Here you must have learnt about estoppel, which we have learnt in Sale of Goods Act also, as well as I have explained you what the meaning of estoppel is. Okay, estoppel means knowingly, very much knowingly, a person usually he acts, he lets the other person act either in favor of him or against him. Okay, which may be true, which may not be true, but at the end of the circumstances, when that particular transaction results in a loss, this person should not back up. Why? Because he has acted in estoppel. Initially, he has taken up that particular, I can call it as particular statement or that particular aspect. But later, when that particular transaction has resulted in a loss, then he cannot forbid or he cannot stop himself from saying that he is not responsible. That is called as estoppel. So let's say when a person himself, he is not a partner in a firm, but he represents himself as a partner in a firm, then automatically, fraudulently, let's say A, B, and C are partners of ABC and Co. Okay, but P is not a partner. But P, now acting as a partner of ABC and Co., has entered into an agreement with, say, Reliance Industries and has now created a loss. Now, who is liable? P only is liable. The other partners are not liable. That is called as partnership by estoppel. Here, P is acting as a partner, yes, fraudulent person. Or let us say A, B, and C are partners of A, B, C, and Co. P is not the partner. But say A has gone to Reliance Industries and have said, P is our partner, please enter into a business with us. Or please enter into a particular business agreement of purchasing some goods from us. Now, it turns out to be a, let's say, now Reliance Industries is not satisfied with goods supplied by ABC and Co. and now they claim damages. Now, P has acted, it is called as P has acted in estoppel. What do you mean by estoppel? When A was bragging or saying that P is a partner, he kept quiet. At that time itself, he has to open his mouth. So in this circumstances, definitely along with A, B and C, P will be held liable. Hope I'm clear. Partnership by holding out is also known as partnership by estoppel, where a man holds himself out as a partner or allows others to do it. He is then stopped from denying the character he has assumed and upon the fate of which the creditors have presumed to have acted. In such case also, everybody will be liable or that particular person making a claim as is liable. Let's say, let's take up a particular case study. X and Y are partners in a partnership firm. Now, X introduced A as a manager as his partner to Z. See, A is not a partner, he is a manager. A remains silent. Z, a trader, believing A as a partner, supplied 100 TV sets to the firm on credit. After credit period, Z did not get any amount of TV sets. Now Z has filed suit against X and A. Now A cannot say that he is a manager and he is not liable. A has acted in estoppel. So in that case, A is also liable to pay the amount. So that's why you please go through this particular point very carefully and this particular example very carefully. So who can act out or hold out? It is only the person to whom the representation has been made and who has acted thereon that has right to enforce liability. Here in this particular example, Z only can sue X and A. There should not be another person suing X and A. Because why? Because Z is the only person who has made representation. Okay. The next one is the rule given in section 28 is also applicable to former partner who has retired from the firm without giving proper public notice. In case if a person has retired from a partnership firm and has not given an ample public notice, even he will be called as partner by estoppel, and the same case, like in case the ex partner along with the running partner, he goes represents himself as a partner of a particular company and sorry particular firm, and the firm enters into an agreement and a loss is results from that particular agreement, then in that situation also this former partner will be held liable. Please go through this particular example. A partnership firm consisting of P, Q, R, and S as partners. S retires from the firm without giving public notice, and his name continues to be used on letterhead. Why? Because he has not given public notice, definitely S is liable as a partner by holding out to creditors who have lent him on good faith. So definitely S by what he is called as partner by holding out or partner by estoppel. With this, I have completed the first chapter in in the topic partnership firm. We'll be going for the second topic also. Please go through all these multiple choice questions and please try to answer the theoretical questions. I have explained each and every aspect of the lesson in detail so that it will be useful for you to understand. Now I'll go to the second chapter. Now till now we have discussed about the general nature of a partnership firm. Now let us talk about the relationship between partners. Why I have taken up this particular lesson continuously is so that it will be useful for you or it will be easier for you to understand. Once this continuity is broken, the second chapter again it will become a bit new to you. So the first and foremost, what are the mutual rights? Mani, what are the rights among them? What are the regular mutual rights and duties? What are their relationship with the parties, relationship of partners with third parties? Then what is the implied? Mani, implied means it is not clearly stated anywhere. But what do we assume? What is the authority of a particular partner? What is the procedure of admission and what is the procedure like what are how are third parties liable to a particular consequence? And in case if a partner is coming out, what are the legal consequences? So first we'll start with mutual relation of partners to each other. So this particular partnership act with regard to relation of partners to one another, like how should a partner behave in a partnership firm, is given in section 9, which defines the general duties of partners. So what does section 9 tells you? Section 9 says that partners usually are bound to carry on the business of the firm to the greatest common advantage. They have to be faithful to each other and they have to exactly explain about the true accounts and full information of all things. These 3 points. What is it? Carry on the business of the firm to the greatest common advantage. They have to be just and faithful to each other and they have to render true accounts and full information of all things. Okay, so this is one of the basic things. That means for whatever business is being carried out,
They can't say because B is looking after the business, A and C, the other partners of the firm, should not neglect the business of the firm, and they should be faithful to each other. Now that because B is only taking care of the affairs of the firm, he should not cheat A and B, and they have to explain about the full information and true things to all the partners. I'll go directly to the example because analysis is same. It's just these first 3 points that carry on the business of the firm to the greatest common advantage, to be just and faithful to each other, and to render true accounts and full information. In a transaction between partners for sale and purchase of a share in business, if one of them is better acquainted with the accounts of other, then it is his duty to disclose all the facts. Okay, so they, in short, they should be like brothers. Yeah, they should be a mutual brotherhood. They should not cheat each other. In case if it becomes cheating or undue influence, then the very essence of partnership is lost. Then we'll go to the section 10 of the partnership firm, which states that in case of any loss caused by fraud, they should indemnify it. What is the meaning of indemnification? Now, please write the meaning of indemnification. Indemnification means making good of one's loss. See, because let's say I'll explain it with a small example. I've already explained it with regard to contract act as well. See, indemnification means, let's say two friends A and B are going out or strolling in a street. Now A had an ice cream with him. Now they both went to an ice cream shop and purchased an ice cream. A and B were having their own ice cream. Suddenly, A by mistake had hit B, because of which his ice cream fell down. Now A offered to buy B another ice cream. What is this called? Indemnification. Whatever loss was made on account of A had now promised to indemnify that loss to B. Now he made good the loss of B by what? By selling him another, by purchasing another ice cream and giving it to him. That is called as duty to indemnify for loss caused by fraud. See, continuing this example, we'll now discuss this particular provision as to how to indemnify the loss caused by any particular fraud. This one we can talk about it as per analysis of section 10. In case if there is any partner who has committed fraud in the conduct of business of the firm, let's say A, B, C and Co is a firm. B is a partner. Now this B partner, he goes and enters into an agreement with, let's say, with XYZ and Co to supply an air conditioner for the partnership firm. So XYZ and Co supplies air conditioner to B. B uses it for his personal use. That is, he uses it in his home and not in the office. In that case, B has to reimburse the amount or indemnify the cost of the air conditioner to A and B. That's what this particular point tells you. Every partner should indemnify the firm for any loss caused to it by fraud in the conduct of business. The partner usually committing fraud in the conduct of business of the firm must make good the loss sustained by the firm, either this continues even for any loss made to the firm either because of misconduct of the partner. Okay. Then next comes determination of, as per section 11, determination of rights and duties of partners by the contract between the partners. Contract is your partnership deed. So what does section 11 say? Usually the mutual rights and duties of the partner may be given in an agreement, that is partnership deed. And this partnership deed can be clearly state about these rights and duties of a partner, or it can be in an implied manner. In that case, the partners have to follow the partnership deed. In case of agreements, in case of restraint of trade means what? Not to carry any particular business. In such case also, these partners should not be
carrying such businesses. Here, rights and duties are usually defined in partnership deed, and partners should follow those rights and duties. That's what Section 11 tells you. In case if the partnership deed prohibits the partners from taking up any particular trade or business, then the partners should not take up that particular trade or business. The mutual rights and duties of the partners of a firm may be implied by a course of dealing. What do you mean by course of dealing? Here means in an partnership agreement. In case of any particular restraint of trade, similarly, they should not carry that particular business as long as he is a partner. Let's say there are a couple of partners A, B, C are dealing with manufacture of, let's say, hair dyes. They have decided not to manufacture powders. In such case, A, B, and C should not manufacture powders either individually as well. Why? Because as per partnership deed, they are supposed to manufacture only hair dyes. You can go through the analysis of section 11. It is quite simple because here what it means to say is whatever rights and duties are mentioned for a partner in an agreement, here he uses the word course of dealing. Those aspects only need to be followed. It is not necessary to go out of, or it is not required to go out of partnership deed. And in case of the partnership deed or course of dealing prohibits a partner from doing any particular business, then they are not supposed to do that particular business. So, in short, you can just underline this particular point. Partnership is a relation eminently depending on the consent of the parties, not only for its existence but also for the terms of agreement in all things consistent with its essential nature and purpose. And an agreement to become partners in the first instance or to vary the terms at any time need not be manifested, or it need not be in any particular format, but they should be one particular contract among the partners. You can just go through this section. That's what it means. Then we'll go for section 12. How should a person or how should a partner take part in conduct of business? This has been particularly subdivided and various subsections have been incorporated for these subdivisions. So, how can a partner take part in the conduct of the business? Does every partner have a right to take a conduct of the business? We'll just talk about it by taking an example. Say there is this particular management power of the particular partner is interfered with, and he has wrongly precluded from participating in it. Can the court interfere in these circumstances? The answer is in affirmative. Affirmative means positive. The court can and will by injunction. Injunction means what? A special order or a special judgment restrain others from doing so. Like there are, let me explain it with the help of an example. A, B, and C are partners. Now C also wants to look into the affairs of partnership firm. But now A and B are preventing C from taking up with the management. Now, can C sue A and B in court of law? Yes, very much C can sue A and B in the court of law, and court can give an injunction order to that particular effect. Okay, why? Because the other partners have wrongly deprived C from participation in the management. And this particular provision is available. Okay, I have said that in case of specifically if it is written in the partnership deed that C will not participate in management in such situations, then the court cannot usually come or poke its nose. The court should not pass an injunction order. In such circumstances, depending upon facts and circumstances, unless and until it is clearly proved by C that something illegal had been done or some breach of trust had been done, then only court can come and take part. Otherwise, court cannot do anything. So usually every partner has a right to take part in the business. In case If other partners are preventing him to take part in the business, then definitely the court can come in between and pass an injunction order, money order, say asking the other partners to allow the aggrieved partner to participate in management, and the aggrieved partner can sought for damages as well. But if a partner had been detained or had not been allowed to take part in the management because of a previous contracted agreement, in such case court cannot act upon the suit filed by this partner. So usually in case if it is written in the partnership deed that a particular partner cannot participate, then he cannot participate. That's what this particular section 12A states about right to take part in the conduct of the business. Then we'll go to the next subsection, right to be consulted. Let's say there might be a difference of opinion arising between partners. Then how do they make the decisions? How should the partners make decisions? In such case, the majority, whatever is the views decided by the majority of the partners, then based on the majority opinion, the matter is decided. But in case of a change, this is usually as simple as that. Majority opinion is decided. You might get a doubt, madam. There are four partners, two are for, two are against. Means they have to decide among themselves. They have to come. Only majority opinion will lead to a decision. That's what this particular section 12C says. But in case if the partners want to change the nature of business, let's say they are dealing in cotton, now they want to change to jute, cotton business to jute business. In such case, it's not majority minority. All the partners should consent. In case if the partners have not consented, then automatically that becomes illegal, compulsory. See, usually when a decision has to be taken in a partnership firm, how should a decision be taken as per 12C? In a partnership firm, the decisions are usually taken based on the majority opinion. In case, if the partner majority opinion is being affected due to the number of partners, still they have to wait till majority is obtained. Otherwise, the matter is jinxed or decision cannot be arised as per Section 12C of Partnership Act. In case if they want to change in the nature of business, here they cannot take the opinion of majority. Here they are supposed to get the consent of all the partners. That's what this particular point with regard to right to consult it states. And this majority rule will not apply in case if there is a change in the nature of firm. Even in case of change in nature of firm or nature of business of firm, all the partners should have consented to that particular change. The next part is 12D is right of access to books. In case of right of access to books, every partner, whether active or sleeping, should be entitled to have access to books of the firm. Whosoever they can come and definitely ask the partner to give him access to the books of the firm and then inspect the books. Yeah, and this particular right should be bona fide. Then comes mutual rights and liabilities. Here till now we have discussed about the rights of the firm. Now, don't you think we have to discuss about the liabilities as well? We have to go through the liabilities. What are the various liabilities obtained by the partners with regard to firm? What are the liabilities? We'll just go through it. All the liabilities are quite important. First and foremost, a partner is not entitled to receive any remuneration for taking part in the conduct of business. Then what will he get, madam? He'll get a share in profit. Only because he is taking part in business, he is not entitled to receive any kind of remuneration. And usually the partners are entitled to share equally in profits earned. Mind you, unless and until if it is profit sharing ratio is mentioned in your partnership deed, usually we assume
that the partners are entitled to share profits equally, and they also have to contribute equally to the losses sustained by the firm. In case if the firm is getting any losses, then they have to contribute equally. In case if a partner is entitled, like as per partnership deed, whatever capital had been given by the partner to the firm, in case if he has to get interest, then interest should be paid only from profits. During losses, this particular partner cannot ask the firm to pay him profits. Okay, sorry, cannot ask the firm to pay him interest. In case of absence of profits, then this particular partner should not force the other partners to ask him to pay him interest on the capital contributed by him, even though the firm is in losses. The interest on capital is usually paid only during profits. Okay, in case of a partner making any payment, okay, beyond the advance of capital he has agreed to subscribe, usually is entitled to interest on it at the rate of 6%. What do you mean by that? See, usually some partners, for purpose of business, even though he has contributed a share of capital for the for the purpose of business, he might have shared additional amount of capital over and above his share of capital. In case if he has contributed in such manner, then on that particular additional capital, whether it is written in the partnership agreement or not, he is entitled to an interest rate of 6%. Are you clear with regard to mutual rights and liabilities? Let's just talk about these 4 points clearly first. Usually, his partner is not entitled to receive remuneration for just taking part in the conduct of business. Usually, partners are entitled to share equally in the profits earned, but at the same time, they have to contribute towards losses as well. In case of payment of interest on capital is paid only during the time of profits and not during losses. And in case of any payment or advance beyond capital is contributed by a partner, then he is entitled to an interest of 6%. In case of any liabilities the partner had incurred by him for the purpose of business, the fifth point, the firm should indemnify, make good his loss. That's what. The firm should indemnify a partner in respect of payments made and liabilities incurred by him in ordinary and proper conduct of business. For the purpose of this partnership business, in case if a partner incurs any loss, then the loss should be made good by the partnership firm. So, what are the kinds of such losses? In proper conduct of the business, in doing an act in emergency for purposes of protecting the firm from a loss. In such circumstances, in case of a partner incurs a loss personally, then the firm should indemnify that particular partner. And in case and at the same time, just like the firm will indemnify the partner's loss, a partner should also indemnify the firm's loss because of his willful neglect and conduct of business of the firm. See, this can be asked as a short marks question, so please go through these rights carefully. I'm just highlighting it. See, it's quite simple. It's basic common sense. Usually, what a partner is entitled to receive remuneration, and then they are usually entitled to share equal profits, and at the same time they have to contribute towards the losses. And in case of interest, interest can be asked only during the time of profits and not during the losses. And for the purpose of business, in case of a partner has contributed additional amounts over and above capital, then he is entitled to interest at rate of 6%. And in case the firm should make good loss incurred by the partner in case of any act taken up by the partner for purpose of business. And similarly, a partner should make good a loss to a firm
in case if a loss had been occurred or loss had been incurred on behalf of him. Then we'll go to section 13. Analysis is same, the 6 points you can just go through them once, but those 6 points you have to by heart. This one you can just go through them, and I'll just touch upon this particular section 14, that is partnership property. What is called as partnership profit of the firm, or what do you mean by property of the firm? See, usually subject to contract between the partners. The property of the firm usually includes all the properties and rights and interest in property originally brought into the stock of the firm or acquired by purchase or otherwise by or for the firm or for the purposes and in the course of business of the firm, and also includes the goodwill of business. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? We'll directly go to the analysis over here. I want you to learn analysis only with regard to section 40. What do you call? What do you say? See, firm is not a separate person as according to law. But can a firm have a property, or can this particular arrangement called as partnership, do they have a property? Yes. As per section 14, it has been clearly stated. What is the kind of property usually which is deemed as belonging to a particular firm? In case if there is any particular absence of an agreement and nothing has been specified as an agreement. In that case, please go through these 3 points thoroughly. They are very much important. So what are they? What are they? First and foremost, all property, rights, and interest which partners may have bought into the common stock as their contribution for common business. Okay, they all the partners come together and pool in some assets. Okay, here stock means pool in some assets as their contribution for common business. That is called as partnership property. You cannot call it as individual property. Let's say three people have come together for starting a partnership. Let's say they have started a partnership to start an audit firm. Let's say A has bought in those respective files and books, the law books, as well as companies act books and various other books. B has bought in the furniture. C has bought in the systems. In such case, this whole property at the time of beginning of the partnership is called as property of the partnership firm. Usually, the partners cannot individually say they belong to us. So, all property, rights, and interests which partners have brought into the common stock as their contribution to the common business. During dissolution, unless and until specifically stated, usually each partner now they cannot take away whatever they have bought. The next one is all the property, rights, and interest acquired or purchased by the firm or for the purposes and in the course of business of the firm. See, usually when the CA firm is growing up, they need further articles like systems, printers, photocopying machines, and all. So these machines will be bought during the course of partnership firm. So even these articles are called as property of that particular partnership firm. Then comes goodwill. Goodwill means what? The name. Usually that's what he has given in your study material as well. Goodwill is easy to define, easy to explain, but difficult to define. Goodwill means what? Let's say in CA firms, Ernst and Young enjoys an immense goodwill, known to be a very good firm. Like you have got big four CA firms. What are they? Ernst and Young, Deloitte Touche, PricewaterhouseCoopers has been removed, right? Ernst and Young, Deloitte Touche, and another firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers has been again included. So now these are the big three, and Ferguson's. Yeah, these are the big four CA firms which are known to have enjoy high reputation all around the world. They have their foot all around the world. These particular partnerships. So what happens? This particular goodwill, why do they have goodwill? Because that's a brand name. That's a brand. Once when you say this particular accounts have been audited by Ernst and Young, that shows that they have complied with certain standards. How did Ernst and Young earn this goodwill? Did it happen in one day? No. Over a period of 100 years, after working with the great corporates and great businesses, they have got this particular name as one of the highest or the best auditing firms. That is called as goodwill. Whatever goodwill Ernst and Young had earned, it is called as goodwill of Ernst and Young. It cannot be given to one particular partner. That's what it says. So, what is the property of the firm as per section 14? All property, rights, and interest by which partners have bought in the common stock, or whatever partners have brought into the firm at the time of incorporation of the firm or at the time of creating the firm, that is the property. Whatever property they have acquired during the course of business, that is also called as property of the firm. And goodwill is something which is earned during the course of business. Even that is considered as property of the firm. Section 14 usually does not define, yeah, you can just go through it. Section 14 does not define the term as well. So, what is goodwill? Goodwill is a concept, or here he has given an explanatory definition which says goodwill may be defined as the value of reputation of a business house in respect of profits expected in future over and above the normal levels of profits. What do you mean by that? Let's take the moment, let us say, when I say if you want to purchase the best of televisions, immediately you get two names, LG and Samsung. Why? They have this brand value, goodwill. Okay, because of which whosoever, everybody goes for those brands only. There might be other local brands as well, but everybody wants to purchase them only. Why? Because they enjoy goodwill. So what is a goodwill? Goodwill can be defined as the value of reputation of a business house. This is a reputation of a business house. You can even take for Hyderabadis, it is Paradise Biryani, right? There are so many biryani joints in Hyderabad, but why only Paradise enjoys that reputation? It has built that reputation over a period of 60, 70 years. Okay, so because of that, you see that particular firm. See, you open a joint. Yeah, this is illegal, but I'm just giving it to you as an example for you to understand. You open a joint selling biryani, name it Paradise, automatically you'll start getting a lot of orders. Why? Because that is the reputation that particular name has got. Okay, that is called as what? Goodwill. Goodwill results in what? In respect of profits expected in future over and above the normal level of profits earned by an undertaking belonging to the same class of business. That is called as goodwill. So definitely goodwill is part of the property of the firm. It can be sold separately or along with the properties of the firm. Any partner may, upon the sale of goodwill of the firm, make an agreement with the buyer that such partner will not carry on business similar to the firm. Okay. Like for example, let's say Paradise, God forbid, Paradise had been sold to somebody else. Now the partners of Paradise cannot again reuse that particular word. Once the partnership has been dissolved or it has been sold to others, again they cannot use the same word and start a new organization. That's what it tells you. Then what is the property of a partner? See, usually when the property exclusively belonging to a person does not become the property of partnership merely because it is used for the business, such property will become the property merely because it is used for the business of the partnership. Such property will become the where the property is exclusively belongs to a person. It does not become a property of a partnership firm merely because it is used for the business of partnership. Okay, here please divide this particular sentence into 2 points. I'll do one thing. I'll highlight these 2 points in a different manner. One second. so that it will be easier for you to understand. The first part is, see, a partner, he has, let's say, they wanted to present some slide. Partnership firm is having some function. Okay, so let's say they have got one particular. Okay, okay. Now, please study these 2 points as different points. See, now there is a function going on in a partnership business firm. So a partner had bought some additional chairs from his house. Okay, let's say it's some kind of meeting clients. Now the chairs have been used. Can you call them as the chairs belonging to partnership? No, it has been used only for that function, and again it has been returned to the partner. So it doesn't belong to the partnership firm. In case if something has mentioned, see the next part, such property will become the property of the partnership firm only if there is an agreement. In case if there is an agreement to that effect, then only those shares will become that of a partnership firm. So then we'll talk about application of the property of the firm. What do you mean by that? Whatever property is the property of the partnership firm should be used only for the purposes of the business. I'm highlighting this particular point in red. See, whatever subject to the contract between the partners, the property of the firm should be held and used by the partners exclusively for the purpose of the business itself. They cannot use it for any other purposes. Whatever property of the firm is present, it should be used only for the purpose of business itself. Please highlight this. Now, I'm not getting it, but please highlight it. See, as per the analysis, whatever is the property of the firm, it should be used only for the business. During dissolution, every partner, as per his share, will get a part of that a particular property. That's what he has explained over here. Every partner of the firm has a right to get his share of profits till the firm subsists, and he also has a right to see that all assets of the partnership are applied to and used only for the purpose of partnership business. So this is what section 15 of Partnership Act clearly explains. Okay. With this, I close today's session. In case of any doubts, please let me know. Thank you all.